You're tuned in to the Sajdah Saturday Morning Coffee Talks, where we talk about life, love, and business. And today is episode 6 of our series on proper handling of money. And before we get started, I just want to tell you we are offering a very special Savior's Day discount on the Sajdah House website. You get 24% off of everything when you use the discount code SD24 at SajdahHouse.com. So get your tea, get your coffee, sit back, and let's get into this hot topic. Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings. You're tuned in to the Sajdah Saturday Morning Coffee Talks, where we talk about life, love, and business.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee, and he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
You belong to yourself. You're an independent people, created from the nation of free people. Yes, sir. You don't need to go nowhere but to yourself. Yes, sir. There will be a great separation. Yes, sir. So I said, it is on now.
The college is meant to prepare you for your future. That the time dictates that if we don't do something for ourselves as a people, we will be destroyed. And the aim of the enemy right now is to take us out.
We have God with us. We have Him as our guide. Yes, sir. We don't have to stand around here and ask the question, what must be done? Yes, sir. Get up and let's go and do something. Yes, sir. We cannot sit down. We cannot lay down. Yes, sir. We must get up. Yes, sir. And go to work.
Do you know what real joy is in life? Visioning something and bringing it into reality. That's real joy. Do you know what the next step in joy is? Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell in unity.
Tonight, you need to fasten your seatbelts. We're going to hear from some of the greatest minds in the world. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of trusting our future and the future of our children into the hands of those who don't love us. I believe we need to revitalize black leadership.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings, family. How are you all doing? Happy Saturday. Before we do anything, I just wanted to chit chat with y'all for a little bit and just say that, you know, I was really up late. I was praying and just meditating on justice in the world, peace in the world. I turned to the Holy Quran and ended up at Surah 22, the pilgrimage that begins right with the shock of the hour is a grievous thing. So let's all be mindful. Let's move in that spirit of peace and justice. Because it's one thing to say, I wish peace on the earth, which of course we all do. Peace is a very beautiful thing. But for some people, peace means just be quiet and get somewhere and sit down. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about justice for all. Look, it's getting chilly. Wintertime is coming. Even for those of us that live in warm areas, the weather's changing. You got 20-degree temperature drops. So you all should be getting ready. Change up your skincare routine so that you moisturize a little bit more, hydrate a little bit more. Also, we are ramping up for Savior's Day 2024. Savior's Day is our biggest holiday for the Muslims. This year, we're going to be in Detroit, Michigan, and we're super excited about that. So just like they ramp up for Christmas, right? I see Christmas decorations out already. We're going to start celebrating and ramping up. Myself and Imam Sultan Rahman, as well as Brother Student Minister Abdul Salam, we're going to be doing some really powerful talks ramping up to Savior's Day. So stay close. You're going to hear about those coming up really soon. And Sajdah House is now offering 24% on everything on our site, just to help give you an early Savior's Day gift. So if you use the discount code SD24, you get 24% off of everything. That's the coins, the hats, whatever's left of everything, 24% off. So, and if you want to donate, you can still do so at Sajdah Enterprises on Cash App or SajdahHouseDonations.com. All right, we are in episode 6 of our Proper Handling of People series. I've already begun preparing for our next series. I cannot wait to announce you. It's going to be a series that's in companionship to my new book that I'm working on. But right now, we're working on the proper handling of people, which is so very important. Many of us just really don't have a standard for which we use to handle people. And so we kind of just follow whatever is out there, whatever business model is out there. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us a lot of guidance on how to handle ourselves, how to conduct ourselves. If you leave it up to pop culture, he's not the person that has given us a new way of life and a new way of thinking. And so we want to show you how you can infuse these principles into your business. And y'all know I'm all about doing for self and entrepreneurship. That's my ministry, if you will. And so I want to help you infuse that into your businesses. So the proper handling of people is a great way to enhance your human resources policies, enhance your management, to help with your company relationships, and really help to develop the corporate culture of your business. See, part of the science of business is understanding all these little things. And so we try to bring you this information here on the show. Last Thursday, we talked to a brother that was just talking about restaurants and the science of restauranting, if you will, or the science of food service. Last week, we talked about how the 8 steps of atonement can be used in 360 feedback, professional development, employee relations, customer service, team building exercises. So you can take these very principles and put them right into your corporate structure to begin to develop a non-predatory business model, okay, that is different from the business models that are out here. Let's face it. One of the reasons why our companies now there's so many initiatives around human resources, around equality and equity, is because these business models were designed and developed when predatory capitalism was an open way of doing business. Capitalism in the American and in the Western society was built on the backs of free labor and predatory behavior, primarily with Black people who were kidnapped and enslaved in America. And that free labor, in essence, made America the #1 superpower. And so that mindset began to reverberate throughout every business science. Every aspect of business, every industry echoed, okay, or had at its foundation that premise, that predatory premise. And so what we've been doing over the years is massaging that, changing it. Companies, I've been around a lot of companies that have really tried to be sincere about changing that business model. But what we're doing is showing you that we have some principles that were introduced to us now over 90 years ago that can definitely be infused into your business. You don't have to be Muslim. You don't have to be Christian. You can be any person that wants to do good business and take good business principles to create new business models. You can definitely infuse this into the way that you do business, because so many of us now are starting businesses, we're opening businesses, and guess what? We're very predatory in nature. We're predatory in terms of how we price things. We're predatory in terms of how we approach business and how we approach the subject. But we don't even know we're being predatory. We're praying. We're real sweet. We're real excited about it. We say we want to help people, but we're predators because that's just how we've been taught business. And so this is helping us to unravel some of that. Okay. So I see y'all in the chat. Before we get started, let me acknowledge you all. Okay. I see you, Brother Lamont. Good morning and wa alaikum salam. Brother Carlos Jennings, wa alaikum salam. Peace and blessings from Detroit. Brother Carlos is chiming in from Detroit. I think Brother Lamont is in the DC area. Sister Nubia, where are you from, sis? Wa alaikum salam. Let's see. We got Sister Aletha right here from our Chicagoland area. Wa alaikum salam, Sajdah, or Saturday morning blessings to you too, sis. Sandra D, where are you from, Sister Sandra? You're always chiming in. We thank you for your continued support, and we thank you for loving the platform, because I love exchanging with you all. And I just pray that Allah blesses me to bless more and more people. Wa alaikum salam, sis. Let's see who else we got here. Sister Charlotte Hobbs. Where you chiming in from, Sister Charlotte? Wa alaikum salam, Sister Cynthia M. Thank you for being a regular here. Let me know where you're from, Sister Cynthia. Sister Aishia, what a pretty name. I love how you take the teachings and apply it to business. It's important we grow to be the teachings by our actions in every part of our lives. That's the goal, sis. Thank you so much for recognizing that. And thank you, Sister Nubia, for chiming in from Kentucky. So, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad introduced to the laborers in the mid 1960s, around 1964, later in that year, a way of handling one another. You know, many of us were and have been thrust into, oh, thank you, Detroit. Many of us have been thrust into leadership, and now we're starting to perfect it and understand the science of being a leader and what it means to be a leader, and how we move forward in life as leaders, right? And then those of us who may not be a leader in a particular situation can learn from if we're a follower or a servant or an employee. So, and we have to learn how to deal with leadership that looks like us, right? Sometimes it's hard for people to even think that somebody that looks like them is even going to pay them. So they're always on edge. They don't give their all in the business because they're wondering, am I going to get my check every 2 weeks? That's real, right? There's also times when, as Black people, especially a lot of times as Black women, we get discounted and dismissed when it comes to business. Oftentimes you got to play bill collector. Sometimes with some of my clients and some people, I'm playing bill collector, and it's a struggle, right? To not allow those isms to make you become a savage or a predator. And so we just want to introduce some principles that can be infused into our business. And we're going to do the same thing with the supreme wisdom and some verses in the Holy Quran. We got a number of series coming up so that we can just create new business models. And this is not just for Muslims, although as Muslims, we should be the vanguard of this kind of way of doing business. And why is it important? It's important because these predatory standards have become these predatory way of doing business have become the standards, okay, in our companies. So this, there's 2 chapters or 2 sub chapters, if you will, in chapter 6 of the proper handling of people as taught to us by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. One is called Good Laborers Neighbor Policy, and the other one is going over basic personality types. So here we're substituting laborer for executive or leader in our organization, okay? And so he talks about time cutting. And one of the things I wanted to share is that in all of our businesses, we should always be thinking about not only quality control, but efficiency, right? Because time is money. And if it takes, we should be monitoring how long it takes for us to do a certain thing. For example, when I helped to build and was really the chief builder and executive in terms of operations at the Minimally Invasive Vascular Center, to help my business partner, who was the CEO, I timed how long does each surgery take and about how long should it take? What are the prices attached per hour? In order for us to open up the door every day, how much does it cost? If you're on the phone with a patient for over a certain amount of time? How much is that costing us? Just so that we understand what we're dealing with, because sometimes we waste a lot of time because we just don't work together smoothly. We don't, my business partner used to say to the clinical team that everything should work like a song. And I thought about that. I said, that's beautiful in business as well, because everything should work like a song. So we should be working together. The brother who was on Thursday talking about the food service business talked about the hierarchy and how the back of the house works like a song. And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talks to us about, in the good laborers neighbor policy, about time cutting. If laborers work smoothly together, they can interchange. And I'm saying to us, when we build our businesses, when we're working together, there should be delineation of duties. And if there's not delineation of duties, because sometimes we're small in staff and we can't get stuck on just doing one job. And let me say this. Most of the times, if you apply for a job somewhere, it's going to be what they call a hybrid job, meaning you're likely going to be doing, or your current job description right now in 2023 is likely going to involve the work of 3 or 4 positions, or what would have been defined 20 years ago as 3 or 4 positions. So now most corporate positions, most businesses, when they hire people, you have a hybrid job description and responsibility. You don't just sit there and do one thing. Like, look, all I do is flip burgers. Don't ask me to do nothing else. I don't wipe nothing down. I don't clean up. I don't greet nobody, whatever. That's not the way we do business today. And that isn't the way you should be grooming your employees. You should be writing those policies and procedures in a way so that each function can get done. And then you want to plug people into it. And you got to face it, guys. You might be doing 1 or 2 things. Let's also face this. As new graduates, when we come out of school, a lot of us go, well, I majored in mechanical engineering and I want to be an engineer. Well, you don't know how to be an engineer yet. So you're going to have to get in there. You're going to have to shadow. You're going to have to get in there, because oftentimes, look, when we move away from these traditional roles, you may go to school for one thing, but it's really a preparation for you to do something else. I studied business, finance, accounting, engineering, psychology, medicine, and it leads all towards what I'm assigned to do: construction, real estate. So anyway, so time cutting, us working smoothly together so that we can impact the bottom line and be of better service to our customer. The second one he said is, he entitles it Muslim morale. And I'm going to call this our corporate morale or our corporate culture. No use trying to put the team idea across to your people if they see that there is no teamwork on the official level. Okay. So one of the things that I was always, keen of and intentional about, especially in my last big business endeavor, and I do it now with some of the other things that I do, although a lot of times there's not a lot of confusion, right, over who's in charge. But even still, with the work that I do, I try to be collaborative with the other people in leadership that are working with me. But with the surgery center and the hospital, people were always confused. Like, is the doctor in charge or is Sister Sajdah in charge? And really, to be honest with you, I was a partner and I did a lot of big functions like designing and developing the center and putting together the policies and procedures and literally writing code to build the software. But I always made sure that people understood that there was good morale between myself and my business partner, because they had to see us as a solid unit in order for them to understand the expectation of working as a team. So even if there was something that we didn't agree on, or if there was something that somebody came and said, well, he said do such and such, and it might have been contrary to an instruction that I gave, I always yielded and say, you know what, let me go and talk to him. That way, you're putting forth a good effort. Don't be, it's like the parents arguing in the house in front of the children. You and your managers, or if all the managers get together and they don't agree, don't be backbiting against another manager. Okay? If you're a new manager and a new person comes in and you don't feel like they deserve to be a manager, don't show that kind of disunity, because what you might think you're doing, you think that you're creating a group of loyal people behind you, but you're really doing is you're tearing down the infrastructure of the organization. And that's a principle of mine across the board. I've always been like that, whether it's in the nation, whether it's in any organization I am. If this is leadership, then leadership has to be respected. And you don't be setting up, well, let me take over. No coup attempts on trying to take over the leadership of the company or the organization. You should be fighting against that. If you see anybody trying to tear down the leadership of the business or the organization, you need to step up right away. Here's number 3. He entitles it emergency aid. If laborers are on good terms, one will jump in to meet the other fellow's emergency. He says fellow, that's like a Southern term, but if you all are on good terms and you see yourself as a family, you love one another, you are concerned about the ongoing concern of the organization. If one person has an emergency, you should jump in there. I'm like that even in my personal life. There's people here in the chat who know me personally, and they will tell you that, look, if they got an emergency, I'm right there. What you got? What you need? What's going on? I'm not bothering them. I'm not irritating. I'm doing what I can to help aid and cushion them in that time of need. And that's how we should be intentional in our businesses. Number 4 is communication. A few warning words can save a lot of headaches and time. Look, I think it's Tony Robbins who said the quality of your communication will dictate the quality of your relationships. It's interesting because I'm going back to this experience. When I first started working with my business partner, Dr. Dormu, I used to get on his nerves because I always err on the side of over communication. So when we get off of a call, I'm sending out a summary. This is what we said. If there's something that I know he needs to be briefed on, he may not have anything to do, and I say, hey, you got a couple minutes? Can I brief you on this? Always erring on the side of over communication. And then over time, as we started to bring on more staff, he came to love it. And he would say, man, when I first met Wendy, she always was communicating. He said, but now I'm grateful for that. And communication helps to drive expectations. If I have a relationship with somebody, I try to make sure that I err on the side of over communication. The reason why I say err on the side of it, because some people might feel like, I don't need to hear that. Well, if we're working on something together, we should be talking. We should be communicating with one another. All right. Y'all all right in the chat over here? I see Brother Michael Muhammad has joined us. Brother Victor has joined us. Brother Victor, I think that's you. We have a consulting session or a coaching session coming up. I'm really excited about it. Yeah, I see you all have joined. All right. So let's keep going here. Feel free to put in the chat any questions you may have. I'm drinking coffee today because I was up late, just studying and reading. And I woke up this morning like, is it 4:30 already? All right. So this next section is called Improving Relationships with Fellow Officials. And I'm going to call this like improving relationships with employees across the board, leadership especially. Number 1, don't tear other people down. Do not get baited into a situation where somebody brings you some news and you start tearing down a fellow manager, a fellow leader in the organization, or another employee. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes we have to keep it real. We have to say, what is he doing? Or what is she doing? We got to deal with what could be wrong and what they might be doing that's not right. That part is true. But we don't do it in a way where we're tearing them down. And some people say, well, what does that mean? Because I'm just talking. See, a lot of this behavior has become such mainstay, like the water cooler talk and everything. This is what we do. But here's some ways that we tear down the leadership of our business when we're working in it. And even you all as employers, because sometimes as an employer or as a business owner, you engage in gossip and slack talk and everything about your employees as well. Sometimes you right with the folks tearing down your own organization and you don't even know. Or you demonstrate these bad behaviors and people are looking at you. So you messing around with other employees. You next thing you know, you got Peyton's place going on in your business and everybody messing around with each other. Well, you started it. Because somebody found out you was messing around with so-and-so and then you dropped them and mess around with that one. Don't make your business your playground like that. Yeah, you can meet your soulmate at work, but especially as an employer, be real clear on whether or not that's your soulmate before you start playing in the pool of people who see you as somebody who can help them and you end up taking advantage. So these things as leaders, we participate in and we think we're just living life, but really you're really dismantling your organization. People see you and you say, well, don't say nothing, but such and such, such and such. Well, if you gossiping, if you backbiting, then you expect that somebody else is doing it as well. And you have to be very, very, very careful about that. And I'm gonna tell you something else that your employees will do. If they know that you're backbiting, they'll come and tell the other person, well, they'll come back and tell you, well, he said this or she said that. And then you run around, you all mad, thinking the person backbiting against you, but really you just judging people based on the behavior that you're demonstrating. So we have to be careful with that. This is how we tear one another down in organizations, by passing the buck. You know what that means? Like if there's something that comes to your desk, you see this all the time in organizations. Something comes to your desk, you don't deal with it. But you do what you can to kick the can down the road. Oh, I think, so-and-so is going to deal with that. I don't want to deal with it. So you manipulate it, hold it on your desk for a minute, and then you just pass it on. You pass the buck. So now you've passed that next person a problem that was bigger than what it was when it came to your desk. Why? Because you've let time pass. You've let the problem begin to expand and really impact the organization in some ways and some ways you don't, all because you're just passing the buck. You're lazy. And a lot of times we're taught in organizations to try to do as little as possible in exchange for whatever we're getting paid. So we try to do as little as possible for as much money as possible. Well, that tears down our organization and it tears down the other people that we're working with. All right, so passing the buck. Encroaching on someone else's authority. This is a big one. You know that person in the company that thinks they're in charge of everything? Or they want everybody to think that they're the ones who are the best at everything? And they start trying to encroach upon that other person's authority. One of the beautiful things about being a consultant is I'm always very clear of what I do and what I don't do. One of the ways in which I learned medicine and learned to be good in the medical industry is because I studied it, because I had so much respect for the people who had gone to school and I didn't want to make a mistake. I wanted to be able to properly support them by understanding what they were dealing with. So I spent a lot of hours studying medicine. And even when people would come and ask me for medical advice, I said, well, listen, I'm not a doctor. My doctor's honorary, but this is what I've learned, and I'll give them certain references. But never would I try to encroach on a doctor's authority in that industry, nor would I encroach upon someone else's authority if I've got a clear delineation of duties. If I think that this is something that should be in their jurisdiction, or I want to make a suggestion, this is where our communication comes in. Okay. Here's the next one. You tear down the organization when you make the most of the other person's mistakes. You want to bust them out. You want to talk about them. You want to tell the world about it. Why not try to cover your brothers or sisters? We're not talking about an enemy environment here. Because, see, in the corporate world, you may have other people that are your enemies because they're trying to get you fired. And that's a whole nother thing. I'm talking about in our organizations, in our businesses, where the person sitting next to you shouldn't be your enemy. That person that you're interacting on the line, on the floor, you're working with to sell those products or make those products or perform those services shouldn't be your enemy. And you don't bring that over here into the conscious businesses that we're trying to build. That enemy stuff, that competitive stuff where you bussing folks out for making every little mistake. Why not try to cover your brother or sister? Why not, if you see that they're a little tired, see what you can do to support them? If you see they don't feel good, see what you can do to support them. See, a lot of times in corporate, that's not how they do. They're going to bust you out. Oh, you must be tired. Something must be wrong with you. Wait till you get in a meeting and maybe they've been talking to you all day long and they know you made a mistake yesterday, didn't tell you today, even though they've seen you 5 or 6 times, and wait till you get in a meeting and then say something about the mistake you made. That is not the proper handling of people. And then you don't dig at people in public. That's the last point. You don't dig at people in public. You make sure that you're conscious about how you deal with people in a public setting. You don't want to necessarily humiliate your staff in public because you don't know how that's going to impact them going forward. So you got to remember, most of us as Americans, especially Black Americans, are damaged. Most of us have PTSD. Most of us are trauma victims. That's just the nature of how things are done here in America. And you can, and this ain't got nothing to do with your background. This ain't got nothing to do with whether or not you were poor or rich. Most of us have dealt with some level of abuse, some level of trauma, some level of mishandlement. Is that a word? We'll use it. Some level of that. And so you have to consider that when you're dealing with people. Now, sometimes you have to correct a situation in public because a lot of times a mistake has reverberated throughout the organization. And so you have to correct, but you don't necessarily want to dig into that person. Sometimes you might have to, but you got to have a level of discernment as a leader. So you know when the public correction is necessary and when the private correction is necessary. See, here's the thing. What happens most of the time in the corporate world and in business, and we're seeing this with all these different lawsuits against high-level people, I won't say no names, a lot of stuff goes on in private. A lot of people just say, well, you just correct in private. You just tell them in private. Well, sometimes you have to shine a light on things, but it's not what you do, it's how you do it. Sometimes things do need to be exposed. Sometimes you do need to uproot a behavior or a practice in your organization, and you need that public exposure, but it's all about how you do it. You have to do it in the spirit of not tearing that other person down. So what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad tells us to do is to build one another up. I see y'all chatting in the chat. Brother Lamont hit the bullseye for us. He said, yes, we do a session coming up. Looking forward to it. Yes, that's Brother Victor. Yeah, that whole concept of Peyton's place is so bad. And it's like it's an addiction, because especially if the person in leadership starts conducting themselves inappropriately sexually with staff and employees, and they start knocking off different people, well, those other people are walking around with resentment. And then other people go, oh, well, if he did it or if she did it, and got a promotion, then I'm going to do it too. And so now you just got this snowball effect of drama in the organization that it's just not good for anybody. So I talk about that a lot because that plagues us in our Black businesses. That oftentimes is the downfall, because let me speak on this metaphysically. When people sincerely come to your organization to help you, or people are vulnerable, you want to be mindful of how you handle them. Because what you don't want to do is mishandle that person, whether you abuse them emotionally or verbally or sexually. Because now that person leaves your presence with a low vibration that they now are using to infect the rest of your organization or your business. Even if they leave, even if they quit you or they leave the business, the energy that you've put out there in the world is going to come back to you. You don't have to believe in karma. It'll happen. My grandmother used to say, oh, you'll read about them. It's going to come back to you. You cannot do good people wrong that come to your organization to help you, even if they have imperfections. You better err on the side of treating them better than they treat you. Don't do it. I'm telling you, it's the quickest way to multiply the negativity that you put out there into the universe. I could go on and on about that, but I think y'all get the point. Look, let's talk about building up the person. Always try to build people up. My thing is, I try to be an asset to people. If I just smile at you and because you need somebody to smile at you, or I hold the door for you, or I just, whatever I can do, I want to build people up. I want to be an asset. I want, when you all think about me in your brain, I want you to think about me in a way that brings good energy back to me. We have to be careful about what we post, right, on social media, because whatever you put out there on social media for those thousands of people, maybe even millions of people to see, is the energy that you're bringing back to yourself. So if it's woe is me, then that's what's coming back to you. If it's, oh Lord, I'm so broke, then that's the energy that's coming back to you. If it's, hey, all I do is party, that's the energy that's coming back to you. And that might be okay, but it may not be okay if you're trying to get somebody to write you a check. Think about that. Think about that. We're going to talk about that at some point. Anyway, building people up. Make sure you give them timely warnings. Again, this goes back to communication. If you know you got to let them go, you want to say that up front. If you know that, hey, we're going to be having a big order coming in, you want to say that up front. And you should be thinking about that because you want to staff up for it, right? Number two, you want to keep people informed. Again, we're going back to communication, the quality of our communication. Keep people informed. Number three, say a good word to somebody. If people having a bad day, they should find in you, as the leader of the organization, somebody that they can come to and hear a good word. You should be a safe, emotional space for somebody. People spend more time at work many times than they do at home. So you want, when they come to work, you want it to feel good. You want it to be safe for them. You want them to be excited about coming to work because you want them to go home and take good energy home and have a good life, because that's going to make things better for you. But it's not only because you're depositing something good into the universe, but because they're going to come to work and be more productive. They're going to come to work and be more efficient. They're going to come to work and be more keen, because if you love something, you see things that people who don't love it can't see. All right? And keep the competition friendly. don't create deadly competitive environments where people are so competitive with one another that they feel like they got to push other people down in order to win. Many sales environment, they'll put like the sales hierarchy on the board or give people awards and things like that, but encourage people who didn't win. I don't believe in participation trophies. Now I know that that's a real common thing nowadays, is the participation trophy. Like, just because you signed up for the volleyball team don't mean that you get a volleyball team trophy. I don't believe in that. If you signed up for the volleyball team and you're working hard and you become a star volleyball player, then you deserve a volleyball trophy. But to me, you don't get a trophy just for signing up. And here's what happens with that. You create an expectation. Don't get me wrong. You want to honor all your employees. You want to be grateful. But don't go to the point where people come to expect that you're going to give them something just for being there. This is a corporate trait that has created certain expectations. Entitlement. I got to give you this example. So I put together a program with the DC Office on Aging where we wanted to begin to bring medical screenings in a very conscious and casual way to the seniors of Washington, D.C. And so in partnering with Dr. Thomas with the Dr. Thompson with the Washington, D.C. Office on Aging, we set up these screening programs, right? And every year, Marion Barry years ago has started a tradition of having a senior holiday party. And he'd have it at the DC Armory, and there would be like a couple, 2,000-3,000 Black and Hispanic seniors. There's also the Pacific Islander Senior Center that comes as well. And the DC Office on Aging used to give us a little training. So everybody who signed up to be a vendor at this event had to take these little classes. And the woman, I can't remember the sister who was excellent at training us on how to deal with seniors. And I had not thought down to this granulated level. And she said something interesting. She gave the age of the seniors. She said most of these seniors come from an era where companies, and she used this word, and I'm not trying to be offensive to anybody, gave out participation trophies. And so they gave out a lot of free stuff. They were making money hand over fist. So sometimes if you worked at some of these big factories, and there was a lot of benefits. So, free supplies, free this, free that, free lunch, free blah, blah, blah. I later learned the origin of a lot of this free stuff, which we'll talk about later. But I learned the origin of it in the development of corporate cultures. And if you notice, a lot of those big companies that often used to do that have gone out of business or they've changed. But she said that this era of people, they come from that time in America where not only did companies give out things for free, the government did a lot of free stuff. And so she said they will take things. And a lot of vendors would come and sign up for these events. And they would get upset because they say, well, somebody stole all my T-shirts or somebody took this or that. And she said, this is her words. I don't know if I totally agree with it, but it's for the purpose of this conversation, I'll say it the way she said it. She said, you might think that they're stealing. She said, but they're really just entitled. And they're going to get angry if you ain't got no free stuff. They're not going to come to your booth if you have nothing for free. They're not coming to your booth for the information. They're coming to your booth for the free stuff. And I was like, what? Well, it didn't really make a difference to me because I always gave away stuff at our booth, right? Keychains and T-shirts and sweatshirts. I remember the year that Marion Barry passed, we put together these Marion Barry T-shirts and they loved them. But people got mad when we were done with the free shirts. When President Barack Obama got elected, we did these Barack Obama T-shirts with our company name on them, and people were used to us having good free gifts. And she used us as an example. And she said, but these people come from that era, this day and time, where a participation trophy was given. And I find it interesting because now I think we're kind of going back to that. Not so much with the free gifts, but now the participation trophy, where we are awarding people for doing things that they're supposed to do. But anyway, she just talked about this era of individuals who literally would take things because they're used to having free office supplies when they go to work. They go to work, and if they children, I've told this story many times. I won't tell it now, but their children is back to school. You're gonna see an uptick in the loss of your office supplies. People stealing copy paper and pencils and ink pens, and they don't see anything wrong with that. People work in hospitals, they take home gauzes and Band-Aids and syringes, and you probably go to their house and see a cabinet full of stuff that belonged to the hospital. And a lot of people don't see anything wrong with that. See, this is cutting into the margins of the people. It's creating an entitlement syndrome a lot of times. And the more people don't feel appreciated, and that's why people kind of tend to go overboard with the appreciation, because a lot of times people are so insecure that the more that they don't feel appreciated, the more they steal at work. The more free food they eat, the more free drinks they take home, the more free products they steal, the more office supplies. Some people never go to Office Max or Staples to get their children's office supplies. They get them all from the office. And y'all know what I'm talking about. Like I said, people work at the hospital and you see everything in the hospital at their house. They work at a grocery store and you're going to see some stuff from that grocery store in their house. It's bad. It's bad behavior. And this is how we have to pare down not only how we handle our organizations, but how we handle one another. It may not feel that big, like it's that big of a deal when you're talking about a big company. But when you as an individual entrepreneur, when I'm going to Staples to pick up the office supplies and I go there and spend $1,000 on office supplies and you decide you're going to take a couple reams of paper home, you damn right I'm going to chase you outside and let me get my paper back. So it's different. It hit different when we're talking about individual entrepreneurs who are striving to introduce goods and services into their community. It hit different if you have a doctor's office and you're ordering those expensive supplies, but somebody's stealing boxes of masks or boxes of gloves or Band-Aids and gauzes and taking them home, and you're watching your inventory dwindle, but you ain't used that much of it. You don't even see a reason to have used that much of it. It hits different and it cuts into your bottom line. And there's studies out here that talk about how employee theft, and I'm not just talking about on a retail level, employee theft cuts into the bottom line deeply of many, many companies. All right, let's see what all y'all talking about. Sister Makeda, you done wrote a long message. Let me see. She said, all praises are due to Allah. Thank you for this podcast that helps us to heal a balm in Gilead. Ooh, praise be to Allah. It brings divine principles that makes us aware of our tendencies to fall weak to mishandling people in various situations of life. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the way Allah is using you to remind us on how to handle people from the spirit and perspective of God, thereby allowing the mind of God to guide us in responding to people in an uplifting manner. All praises due to Allah. I love this. Thank you so much, sis, for those very, very kind words. I really, really appreciate it. But yeah, this is something for us to think about. Okay. People will say, you need something. I can get that from work. People work at a bookstore and they got all kinds of books in their house, not because they bought them, because they done lift them from the bookstore. Well, when you bring those types of behaviors into a conscious situation, a conscious business, an organization, an individual doing for self, trying to build a company, when you bring those behaviors that you learn that are a response to the trauma that you experienced in that big company, when you bring that to that small business, you can literally put that person out of business. Some of us waste copies. We just sit up there and we're just printing. We go, oops, oh, my bad. Well, that may not be that big of a deal in the corporate world. But at your brother or sister's business, that's a very big deal. It's a very big deal. When you stealing stuff because you think you're entitled to it because you work there. We got to check that. Got to check that about ourselves. All right. So then the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talks about basic personality types. This when he talked about basic personality types, it made me cringe a little bit. Because while as leaders in our organizations, it's important that we understand the different basic personality types that we're dealing with. And I don't know how many of you all have taken like a Myers-Briggs test, or where they tell you your personality. I think I was an ENTJ, extrovert, intuitive. I forget the other stuff, but it's important. But this is what we have to be careful of. And I see this so much now, especially now that we are all, for the most part, not all, but a lot of us are working on ourselves. Some of this comes from pop culture lingo that's in the lexicon, where everybody's a narcissist, everybody's toxic, everybody's got PTSD. And so sometimes I think we throw that stuff around too much. But we do all have trauma from living and being here in America. And a lot of people don't like to hear me say that. They say, well, you can have trauma anywhere. Yes, you can have trauma anywhere, but this living in this country in particular can be a very traumatic experience. And you may not even know it until you go somewhere where certain isms don't exist and you feel the stress levels just leave your body immediately, like as soon as you land. We had that conversation later. But what I want us to be careful of is over-diagnosing one another. I think there's a tendency to look at people. Let's say you have an interaction with people, with a person. There's a tendency to go, oh, he's a narcissist, or she's toxic, or she's this. And we're constantly pointing, and our diagnosis becomes like an accusation. And we've forgotten all about loving one another. We've forgotten all about supporting one another. We've forgotten all about wrapping our arms around someone and giving them a word that can change their life, because we're so busy diagnosing everybody. Are you okay? What's wrong with you? We size people up. That's the worst thing about even working in medicine, because you're always looking, you're always diagnosing, because that's what you get into. Well, we now are doing that on a day-to-day basis as we interact with everybody. See, and what we don't realize is that oftentimes there's a time and a place for certain personality traits depending on what the assignment is. Most of the time I get assignments from Allah that require me to be stubborn. Like, nope, I'm standing on it. This is what I'm doing. So some of what you all compliment me about is my consistency and the way that I hang in there with something until, it ain't over till we win. A lot of that is born out of some stubbornness in me. But if you just diagnose me and go, oh, she old stubborn thing, you might just throw me away. But God said, no, that thing that you see as a fault, she's stubborn and she's sensitive. This is a good place for her. She's stubborn and she's sensitive. I'm going to let her develop the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House Museum. So don't be so quick to use your diagnosis of someone as a weapon. Okay? Let me know in the chat if you understand what I'm saying, because this is another thing that we do. And this happens a lot of times for us as women. You get in a relationship with somebody, married or otherwise, and it goes bad, it blows up, or it gets exposed. Then the person, usually it's the man, I'm just going to keep it real, who doesn't want to be exposed, or who is protecting something, or who probably was about to do something wrong, or would have done something wrong, or did do something wrong, will often say, well, she's crazy. Something's wrong with her. She's delusional. She's nuts. And so these diagnoses become weapons. And other people, when they hear them, somebody say, well, you know, Sister so-and-so is crazy. Now everybody's treating her like something's wrong with her. When in fact, ain't nothing wrong with her. She might have she might have had to get a little crazy in order to deal with you. Or, you know, maybe the trauma made her act a little bit other than ourselves. But this is oftentimes how these diagnoses are used, especially on women. It's been historically used on women. Oh, she's a prostitute. Look at Mary Magdalene. We covered that in our series on the women of the Bible. They said, oh, she's a prostitute. She's a loose woman. She had these demons. She's crazy. And then that's how we see that person. We don't see the other good that Mary Magdalene, for example, did for the movement of Jesus's movement. And for the other disciples, all we see is crazy prostitute. And that's been what has plagued us as women for many, many years. Now they're starting to do it to men. Toxic, narcissist. And then it's like that person didn't do anything else good. Toxic narcissist, that's what they say about men. Crazy whore, that's what they say about women. Those are the labels. So I want us to be aware of that, so that we can be careful, because in most cases, more than one thing can be true at the same time. Everything is not as black and white as pop culture or the world will make it seem. A person can be what you may call crazy, but they may be a benefit to their family and to their community. A person might be what you call toxic, but they're creating opportunities for other people. So sometimes more than one thing can be true at a time. All right, so let's go through these real quick. We're not going to go through each and every single one of them. I've been talking for a long time. The messenger talked about 5 personality traits. Okay, he called them basic personality types. Okay, the first one he puts on is stubborn. So if you got a person who's stubborn, think about how you can use them in your organization. Sometimes I'm not going to go into the details about them because we don't have time. Sometimes you have a person who's slow. Well, you should be such a scientist when you're talking about the functionalities and the job descriptions that you need in your business, that you might know whether or not you need a slow person or a fast person. Do you need somebody that can't be rushed, or need somebody who's rushing all the time? When do you need a sensitive person? When do you need a person who's sensitive, who's paying attention to details, who might take things a little bit personally? When do you need a sensitive person? When do you need a timid or a more humble person? When do you need a bold person? So this is how you determine how you're going to utilize these people in your organizations, is when you create that job description or you create that job function. You should be thinking about what type of person is the best person here. Maybe if it's a quiet environment, maybe if you have an organization and you all deal with hospice patients, maybe you don't want that loud bold, boisterous person working there. Maybe you need somebody that's a little more humble and quiet and sensitive. If you need sales and you want those sales numbers going through the roof, and you know you got a lot of competition, maybe you want that bold, aggressive person in there. That stubborn person who ain't going to give up. You got to know how to deal with personality types and match them up to your business processes in your organization. And it should all be done out of love and in an effort to build a person up. Always, always when you're diagnosing somebody, do it when you're diagnosing their personality or you're diagnosing them to see what's going on with them, do it out of love. And how do you make sure you do it out of love? There should be some action behind it. Don't look at that person and say, oh, she tripping, something wrong with her, when you're not going to help love that person into good health. Don't describe somebody as stubborn and mean and bold when you got them in the wrong position. Put them in a position where they can strive based on their personality type and based on their goals. All right, family, I'm sorry. I've been talking. I got us going over a little bit. I see some new people in the chat. Sister Aishia said, the common thread through your presentation is the importance and power of having a high level of integrity. Yes, ma'am. That's exactly right. To the best of our ability. Use people and things accordingly. Yes, that's right, Sister Sandra. MGTNOI, FM. What's that, Memphis? Yes, ma'am, I understand. She says she understands. Brother Lamont said he understands. Let's see. Sister Marvelous Marva just got here. Walaikum salam. She said, knowing your environment, then match the personality types. That's a perfect way to say that. So thank you all very much. I appreciate you all for joining and tuning in to today's episode of The Proper Handling of People. This is designed to raise our awareness so we understand how to take these principles into our businesses and to develop our businesses, train our staff, and deliver these goods and services into our community using these principles that we've been taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. New business models. It goes beyond what you might think. This is a new way of being, a civilized way of being. Okay, so in celebration of Savior's Day, I'm going to say it one more time. We're having a 24% off sale on every item at sajdahhouse.com. All you got to do is use the discount code SD24. I'm talking about the coins, the baseball caps, the coin purses, everything, SD24. Anything, but it's got to be on the sajdahhouse.com site. So go on there, see what you like. This is a time for you to get 24% off. I figured, look, they start celebrating Christmas in October. So let's start celebrating Savior's Day. And we can do that early. So I want to give you an early Savior's Day gift. Use the discount code SD24. All right, family. May Allah bless each and every one of you to have a happy Saturday. And inshallah, we'll see you all Thursday and then again next Saturday for episode 7 of The Proper Handling of People. Peace and blessings, family. Love you all.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who in my judgment is the master historian, taught us that of all our studies, history is the most attractive, and it is best qualified to reward the researcher. History is most attractive. Why should history be most attractive? Because history is the recorded time of the human family in its struggle to overcome obstacles. There is no life that is without struggle. The Holy Quran teaches us that man, meaning man and woman,
is made to face difficulties. And after difficulty comes ease. But it is history that guides us through difficulty. For if you know how people who had difficulty yesterday got through, and if your difficulty is somewhat similar, then today we also can get through if we follow the guidance of history. This is why Carter G. Woodson and many of our black giants fought for black people to know our history. Because in not knowing our history, we don't have a guide. And without a guide, we are lost. No wonder the